Hello. I'm speaking to you, presumably of the future, from the heart of coronavirus times. It's the end of March, towards the end of March 2020 in Scotland, and this weekend has been a real turning point in terms of social distancing and isolation and shops closing and all that. It's a very strange time to be living. People are advised to stay at home and all that. I've been for a couple of walks with friends this weekend, away from, in the, not, well, one was out in the countryside, sort of, and one was by the river here in Glasgow, one of the rivers, and it was busy-ish, but, we weren't doing anything silly, we weren't shaking hands with strangers or anything like that. But felt a little bit, especially today, felt a bit like, maybe this is even that is a sort of taking the mick a bit in terms of the social distancing thing. I don't know. But yeah, today my friend and I went for a walk and then walked back to my place. And then I walked with him into town because it was very nice weather. And I kind of had a notion like I should stop doing this. So this might be my last opportunity to go scratch the itch and go to CEX. I kind of knew like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. But I did. I went, and town was fucking dead. Almost no one around, and I felt really silly being there. But I went in. I got two games, and that's it. I'm not going back for the foreseeable future. 3 months is, well, 12 weeks is what's been talked about. Total lockdown, I mean, eventually it'll get to that stage. And the reasons for going outside will be diminished because there's not even, I mean, cafes and bars were told to close on Friday. Shops that aren't dealing in essentials will naturally close because people won't be going in. And it's funny because a week ago when I was in CEX and everything seemed like, well, it was serious, but this hadn't happened yet. People are really catching on now. I think people really are staying indoors, and that's because they weren't there in town. It's not like, I don't know. Anyway, it's funny. Yeah, we could go in CEX. There were big queues on a few of the days I went in, and that's why one of the games I got today, I kind of wanted to buy as early as the beginning of this week, and I went in and massive queues, and I thought presumably it's people whose livelihoods have been uh, put in danger and they're selling stuff for cash. There's also a possibility that it was people who are planning to self-isolate or quarantine, who, supposedly the CEX had totally sold out of PS4s and the like. Not a bad idea. Who knows? But today it was absolutely night and day. There was only a couple of people working, and there was hardly anyone in the shop, and I was rather ashamed to be one of those few people. So I will not be doing that again until this all blows over, as it were. But this is not supposed to be a video about the coronavirus, COVID-19, as such. So, on to something unimportant. Conker's Pocket Tales. I said this before. I'm a sucker for Game Boy games. I find there's always something weird about Game Boy games. I think almost always something weird about Game Boy games. Something unusual about them compared to a similar game on another console. Um, there's things that make them interesting. One of the things that makes this game interesting to me is it's the very simple thing, but the black cartridge. That's kind of uncommon. Oh goodness. What I do know about this game, it's a Conker's game or a Conker game of Conker's Bad Fur Day, and was it Conker Fully Loaded or something? The kind of third-person shooter that came out on the Xbox 360. Sorry, yeah, it was the Xbox 360, or was it just the original Xbox? Doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah, so Conker's Bad Fur Day was kind of famously foul-mouthed and cartoonish profanity and kind of sexual references and the like. As I remember, I think I heard this in like a Did You Know Gaming video. This game, Conker's Pocket Tales, it's made by Rare still. I think it might have come out before Conker's Bad Fur Day. Possibly was being developed, in tandem with it. But it's kind of, the side game. It isn't, it's, the spin-off in a way. But I think it came before it, and it is not, full of swearing and the like. It's, I think, a pretty ordinary sort of Game Boy, probably platformy, sort of child-friendly type game, which is kind of funny. And it's typical of that kind of Game Boy oddity, games, series with a game that appeared on Game Boy. There's usually something kind of different about it. Because I don't know, I suppose they were kind of marketed differently and they were developed differently, and maybe it was a bit experimental at the time, handheld gaming. And it's kind of using for the first time on the Game Boy to an extent, making new games with kind of not old hardware, but with old technology to an extent. The Game Boy was in some respects kind of like a handheld NES. But contemporaneous with the Super Nintendo and beyond. It lasted a long time, and this is obviously N64 era. So kind of look forward to playing this, because who knows what it'll be like, but it caught my eye in that typical Game Boy oddity way. The cartridge has a different feel to it as well. It feels kind of dusty, more matte, kind of a bit more granulated perhaps, but that's possibly not the case. Yeah, it feels a bit different. Looks funny. Nice thing about Game Boy games, is it? Anyway, next, I thought I'd, if you're going to scratch the itch, might as well scratch it twice. Scratch. This is Donkey Kong Land. Again, nice funny yellow cartridge. I remember hearing it said that these were yellow because it looks like a banana. And doesn't it look exactly like a banana? I see on this it says it is a... Ooh, there's no way it's focusing on that. But here, you'll have to take my word for it. It says Super Game Boy Pack. Super Game Boy Game Pack. So I suppose that's referring to, the Super Game Boy on the Super Nintendo, the cartridge that you can stick Game Boy games into. So maybe this has, I doubt it has special features as such, but it might have kind of custom layout or custom colors or something. because I suppose this will have been before the, the Super Nintendo. The cartridge that you can stick Game Boy games into. So maybe this has, I doubt it has special features as such, but it might have kind of custom layout or custom colors or something. Because I suppose this will have been before the, the Super Nintendo. The cartridge that you can stick Game Boy games into. So maybe this has, I doubt it has special features as such, but it might have kind of custom colors or something. Because I suppose this will have been before the Game Boy Color in all likelihood. So it will have kind of been programmed to show color on the Super Game Boy, which will have been the only way of getting color out of Game Boy games at the time. Which I think is true for Super Metroid as well. I suppose you could probably tell just by putting a Game Boy game into a Game Boy Color. You know what? It never really occurred to me that whether or not Game Boy games turn up in color on a Game Boy Color, because I have played them. I mean, I know the Pokemon games do. Certainly Gold and Silver in pretty full color, and Red and Blue are just in red or blue, as I remember. Pokemon Yellow, it's kind of a mixture of the two. So that's interesting. Anyway, Donkey Kong Land, sort of interesting from the Game Boy, just the whole Game Boy thing, because, these naming conventions, Donkey Kong Land, to distinguish it just, barely from the Donkey Kong series country on the Super Nintendo, which strangely came out on the Game Boy Color. At least one of them did, Donkey Kong Country. And then I think maybe the other ones came out on Game Boy Advance. Maybe not. Maybe Donkey Kong Country came out on Game Boy Advance as well. Anyway, so Donkey Kong Land, like Super Mario Land on the Game Boy, as opposed to Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. So it's just kind of funny to see how, and Castlevania Adventure, even though really it was of the same format as the Castlevania games on the NES or the Super Nintendo at that time, it's no more or less linear compared to, say, the Game Boy Advance games, which are really quite different. Although that was post Symphony of the Night. What am I talking about? Basically, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see how developers, I don't mean to read too much into this, but there's in naming conventions and that sort of thing, seems to be a perceptible effort to distance the Game Boy games from the proper games, and I think that's kind of it's kind of merited, isn't it? Some of them are bizarre. Experimental is probably taking it a bit too far, but there's something different about the Game Boy. Anyway, that'll do for now. Feeling a bit knackered from walking and just, strange times. So I've given, well, I wouldn't say serious thought, but I've been continually considering streaming now. These would be the perfect circumstances to be streaming, which would involve perhaps a kind of opening up on my part of this channel, which is pretty underground, to put it lightly, right now. But I don't have really streaming equipment. I don't have game capture devices. So I was trying to imagine, and I couldn't be bothered. I'm bothered setting these things up. My MacBook is from like 2007. I desperately need to update it. At least the software, if not, replace the hardware, which I will not be in a position to do for quite some time now, thanks to... Anyway. I considered a really, bizarre and rudimentary way of streaming the game screen and, myself, because frankly, the way this channel has gone, if it were to be in keeping with that, it wouldn't be about the gameplay primarily, or certainly not solely, but it's the chat, which it can only be said that I care about that aspect of it, because no one's really watching this stuff. But if it's worth doing, it's worth doing via this platform or as this channel. That would be the reason to do it. And frankly, that's the thing that appeals to me about it. It's about talking about the games, playing them. Ugh, connecting with people right now as well seems like, however you can achieve that, seems like an important thing at the moment. Um, don't want to get very unintentionally deep about that. You know, I can, and that's the thing. I can still see people at the moment, so uh, it's not to sound so drastic. Anyway, I'm starting to depress myself a little bit talking like this. So yeah, these are going to have to these are going to have to sustain me for the next 12 weeks at least. Fingers crossed it is only 12 weeks, but seems quite wishful thinking. So see you, whoever you are on the other side. Cheers.